These are the breakout tight ends in fantasy football that you need to draft. Getting us started, of course, at some point or another, we all knew this was coming. I had to make my homer pick. This is the one. Isaiah Likely just got a 3-year, $40 million contract with 26 guaranteed in this offseason. And as I've said in past videos, follow what an organization does to tell you exactly what an organization wants to do on the field. Not only did they just go and get a guy in John Harbaugh that is very familiar with Isaiah Likely in his last healthy season, 2024, last year he was a little bit banged up, so I had to go back just a couple years. He was 28th in total pass plays amongst tight ends, but that did not stop him from being 16th in receiving yards, 6th in touchdowns, 6th in yards after catch per reception, and 7th in yards per route run. And over his last 100 targets, the man has just 2 drops, and he averages 1.7 yards per route run that season. So he was phenomenal with good quarterback play. And as at best this year, the first option in the offense for at least the first few weeks with no Malik Neighbors. If Malik Neighbors is healthy come week 1, at worst, the guy is going to be the second option in this offense. And let me just say that opens up a whole lot because their plan for Isaiah Likely is to use him in a very similar fashion to how Wan'Dale was used last year. And obviously this isn't a Brian Daboll offense, but Isaiah Likely lines up a lot in the slot, not just in line. And even some of his snaps came on the outside as well. So the guy is more than just a traditional tight end. He's a legitimate receiver that makes contested catches, can run clean routes, and can run with the ball in his hands. So this is a guy that, if there is a telling stat in fantasy football for tight ends specifically, it is yards after catch. That has been the most proven metric for any of these guys, the young tight ends at least, or the tight ends that the second contract turns them into monsters. Isaiah Likely is one of these guys, and it lines up perfectly for him to be that guy for Jackson Dart and for him to be heavily involved with probably easily the most targets in his career and shattering every single one of his personal bests. So I think it's a huge year for Isaiah Likely, and he's a major value, by the way, at tight end 17, going in the late 10th, early 11th round. Nobody in his range is likely, pun intended, to have his type of role in an offense. So I'm all in on Isaiah Likely.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing here is the role that he could potentially have and the money that he got, right? Like, it's a theme of these breakout videos. Follow the money, follow what the team wants to do. They gave him $27 million guaranteed. They want him to be a focal point of this offense. This is a guy who a lot of people believe has been buried for some years behind Mark Andrews. I'm not the highest on Isaiah Likely, the player. As a football player, I think he's a weird case because he's one of these tweeners, right? Like, he's not really a tight end, but he's also not really a wide receiver either. So that's where it gets tough. But, I mean, Malik Neighbors coming back from injury. They said he's good for OTAs and might potentially be good for week 1. So that kind of hurts the case a little for Isaiah Likely. But also you could look at it, on the opposite lens. Maybe it helps him having a guy like Malik Neighbors over the field to roll coverage over to him. I mean, there's no other competition for targets in this offense. You're competing with Darnell Mooney and Malachi Fields and Darius Slayton. Like, they brought him in to be a key point in this offense, to probably be the second leading target earner in this offense. So there's no reason he shouldn't break out. He should see his highest snap percentage of his career. He should see the most targets in his career. He's a guy who's, over the course of his career, he's been super efficient with his targets. So I think in an increased role, he should have his best year. I feel like, again, similar to some of the guys we spoke about on the receiver one, like a Devontae Smith. Like, this is one that's just glaring. Like, in terms of breakout being better than what you have shown in the past, there's just no way this isn't the best year of his career. What does that look like in a fantasy football lens? Like, what are the numbers? I'm not too sure, but just strictly breakout being better than you were, it's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer.
I completely agree. Yeah, I would not be surprised, and this is almost what I expect of him this year. I think he's going to have over 65 catches, over 700 yards, and probably close to, if not in the double digits for touchdowns. I do believe that highly of Isaiah Likely. I think he's going to be phenomenal for us. So
my breakout tight end, this might be my favorite breakout player in all of fantasy football, honestly. This is one of my guys. A guy that I've been waiting for an opportunity like this to come his way. It's Chig Okonkwo. The guy's an athletic freak. In his rookie year, he was awesome. I mean, he averaged 14.1 yards per reception, 7.9 yak per reception, which is just absurd. I mean, 8 yards after the catch on every reception is nuts. He wasn't playing that many snaps, so that's why the explosiveness looked the way he did. Then, the past 3 years, those numbers went down, right? 9.8 yards per reception, 5.2 yak per reception. He was playing more snaps, but he was playing in a broken offense in Tennessee. I mean, Brian Callahan came over, and it was just an absolute shit show. The quarterback play hasn't been great there. Then he comes over to Washington. The biggest thing here is the opportunity, right? Zach Ertz leaves. That's 72 targets that Zach Ertz earned in only 13 games last year. There's a guy who could push 100 targets. Probably not, but could be at like 85. Jaden Daniels is a guy who has thrown to his tight end a lot, a la Zach Ertz, the past 2 years. He has a 20% tight end target rate, so break that down. If Jaden Daniels throws 500 balls, that's 100 balls going to the tight end. Obviously, Chig isn't going to see every single tight end target, so there's a clear role for Chig here. He's playing in an improved offense. I love the offensive coordinator in David Blau. He comes over. He was with Detroit as a player, actually, in 2023. And then he came over last year and was the quarterback coach. Now he's the OC. But he has a little bit of Ben Johnson to him. He wants to run a similar scheme to a Ben Johnson and get his guys open in space, right? Like an Amon-Ra, Jameson Williams, a Sam Laporta. I feel like also the fit with a guy like Jaden Daniels, right? Like, Jaden Daniels is able to run, and he's one of the most explosive running quarterbacks in the league. You have to play man coverage against a guy like that. What that allows is a guy like Chig Okonkwo, who has insane speed at the position, to win on drag routes, to win underneath, and get the ball in his hands and be able to make a play like Zach Ertz wasn't able to do at his old age, the past 2 years. So I think, he's one of 6 tight ends to have 50-plus receptions in each of the last 3 seasons. The other 5 guys are elite guys who are staples at the position. He's averaged about 500 yards over his career. There's no reason this shouldn't be an 800-yard guy, honestly. To me, he's the clear number 2 in the offense. He's an elite athlete. The situation lines up for him to have success, and the scheme and the fit within the scheme lines for him to have success. So, yeah, I'm all in on Chig.
He's also someone that, like, correct me if I'm wrong, is not being drafted highly whatsoever. Like, he might be in the 20s amongst tight end ADPs. I completely agree in the fact that he is an absolute breakout candidate. Number 2, as Isaiah Likely in the similar boat of number 2 in an offense that has the potential to be good with a good quarterback. And at least Jaden Daniels significantly more proven to this point than Jackson Dart, obviously. But I think Jaden is looking for that number 2 guy now. And Deebo Samuel obviously gone now out the door as well. So Antonio Williams could potentially be that guy, but you already have someone that's established and has proven that he's capable at the NFL level. Chig Okonkwo is likely to be that number 2 guy, and that's huge in a high-powered offense.
Right, it's the same thing as Isaiah Likely, right? Like, I know you're higher on the Giants' offense as a whole than I am, but the guy who's going to be the number 2 target in what profiles to be a very explosive offense. If everything goes his way, there's really honestly no way he's not a top 10 tight end. At a position where, there's 5 or 6 guys who are guaranteed, there's really no reason he can't break his way in there. At least be a tight end 1, top 12 guy.
Completely agree.
So
I know you just said a top 10, top 12 guy. I'm going to give you a guy that I believe is going to be, or at least has a legitimate shot of being the tight end 1 next season, the overall tight end 1 next season. Colston Loveland. I am so beyond high on Colston Loveland as a player. I was beyond high on him as a prospect. I thought that he was very similar to George Kittle in a lot of ways, and I think he proved that in his rookie season. Colston Loveland was phenomenal his rookie year, especially down the stretch. He's already basically broken out. From week 12 through the playoffs, Loveland had no fewer than 5 targets per game and averaged a little over 8 targets per game. And also, as I just said, and this is something that I hammer home over and over again, look at a team's intent. That showed something, that number 1, because when they got to the playoffs, who was the guy that they leaned on the most? Who was the guy that Ben Johnson leaned on the most when their offense became the most explosive? it was Colston Loveland. He was also the first pick of the Ben Johnson era. Colston Loveland was that. So he acted as their wide receiver 1 down the stretch of the season. And I think another thing that proves a lot with Loveland is his usage was so encouraging because he led all tight ends with a minimum of 40 targets, by the way, in percentage of snaps that were ran out wide. The guy had a quarter of his snaps, 25%, out wide, which he was basically used as a receiver, not even a tight end. And there was only about 20% of his snaps that were used in line. So the guy was in the slot, the guy was outside. He was basically another wide receiver for them. He was 5th in yards per route run amongst all tight ends, 3rd in the average depth of target, and he had just 2 drops on 106 targets all year. He has elite hands. He's a great route runner. He's very good with the ball in his hands. Everyone's trying to figure out who the number 1 wide receiver is in this offense, and I don't think you have to look at wide receiver to find that because I think it's the tight end. He's tight end 1, and he may very well finish as the tight end 1 overall in fantasy football next year.
It's tough.
I know you're
agree
not
yeah,
on the
I agree with everything you said. My only fear here is there's so many mouths to feed and it's hard to predict. But I think that's baked into all 3 of those guys' price is
Definitely.
the variance that could be there. But in terms of just the player, I agree. I mean, this is a guy who came in not day one, but through his rookie season and cemented himself as a top 5 tight end in the sport. He was great down the stretch of the year. Like, a lot of people, I think, have him as their tight end 3. So, like, having a guy that high, obviously he could contend to be the tight end 1 overall.
Definitely.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't really have any pushback there. Like I said, the only pushback is really what happens if he's the number 3 target earner on this offense.
Of course. No, I mean, that changes everything. It's just we saw with all of the guys healthy. And yes, Luther Burden could definitely take a step up, and Romo Dunze could get healthy. But we saw from a point in the season where it was like, oh shit, we got a guy. We got the guy. We don't have a guy. We have the guy. And we're talking about 5 of those games were above 90 yards. And he had one of the greatest playoff games from a tight end ever. So it's like, while I understand the hesitation there, it's like, I think there's a higher chance that he leads the offense in targets than legitimately anybody else, and it's close to a 50% chance, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
So
no, I'm with you there. I think too, in situations like this, like, you have to call your shot, right?
Yes.
Like, a lot of times I say in fantasy football, I play in a million leagues, you play in a million leagues. I'm sure a lot of people watching play in a ton of leagues. Like, try and diversify your portfolio a little bit. I think this is one where, like, it could be so variant that, like, you have to call your shot, you have to plant your flag, and, like, that's the flag you're planting. If you're a Colston Loveland guy, like, that's the guy who you're going to own in this offense. If you're a Luther Burden guy, like, that's the guy for you. Same thing with Rome. So I'm kind of with you. Like, you're honestly kind of convincing me a little bit. Like, down the stretch of the year, he was the best pass catcher on this offense. And there were more mouths to feed with DJ Moore being there. So there's more opportunity for all 3 guys, right?
100%.
Like, there's targets open, and a lot of people probably expect Luther to take majority of those targets because they were coming from the wide receiver position. But the guy was so damn good down the stretch of the year.
I think we're all so high also on the Bears offense as a whole to take another big step that it's like, even if the targets only go up in a minor way, it's like those targets could be worth so much more because this offense could be so much more explosive. But yeah, I mean, I think you saw that I statted him out.
Yeah.
And I had him
clearing. Like 1,100?
Yeah, I had him at 1,100 with like close to 100 catches. Like, I had him at 140 targets. I think he's going to beat out every wide receiver on this team by about 20 targets or so. So, yeah.
Yeah. My final tight end breakout, I'm going to give a homer pick here. Tight end's like a little bit of a scarce position, right?
Definitely.
Like, there's the established guys there, and, sometimes you could call your shot on a guy taking a jump to be the number 1 guy like you did. I'm going to go for more of a deeper cut here. I'm going to give my homer pick. It's Greg Dulcich. The guy was pretty good down the stretch of last year.
This is a crazy one.
Came to Miami, played in 10 games, had 335 yards and a touchdown. Over that stretch, he led the team in targets outside of Jalen Waddle. And I think that's a big thing, right? You look at the Miami Dolphins, call it what it is. Might be the worst wide receiver group in the history of the sport.
So bad.
Like, it's terrible. This is an offense who I don't think Greg Dulcich is the talent that a Trey McBride is, but you look at a Trey McBride who was clearly the best pass catcher in his offense last year, in an offense that played from behind 95% of their time on the field. The 5% that they weren't playing from behind was the first 5 minutes of the game. Always playing from behind. It's going to be like that in Miami. They're going to have to pass the ball. They're going to have to get their passes up there. And Greg Dulcich is similar to a Chig Okonkwo, similar to an Isaiah Likely. He's an athletic freak.
Yes.
He's probably more of a wide receiver than he is a tight end. What's like the term for that? They call like an H-back or whatever, the football term, whatever it is, these hybrid tight ends.
Joker. Like Sean Payton
so
made
Sean
that
Payton
Joker.
called him his Joker, actually, in his first year in Denver. And it's weird with Greg Dulcich because he had a very promising rookie year in 2022. He had 411 yards, 2 touchdowns, and then 2023, he only played in 2 games. 2024, only played in 9 games. Like, ended up on the Giants for the second half of the year, then came to Miami in the middle of the year, and also had to split time with Darren Waller and was still as good as he was. Like, there's, I think, more than a 50% chance that this guy leads the Dolphins in targets, in receptions, in yards, and in receiving
Somebody's got
touchdowns.
to catch the ball.
Not named Devon Achane in terms of that stuff, but in terms of like actual just pass catchers, not running backs, I feel like he's the most talented guy and he should be the number 1. Like, it's not a pretty pick at all, but this is a guy who's free in drafts. Like, in terms of ADP, you take him with your last pick. I mean, honestly, in redraft, he's probably not even a guy who you draft. He's probably a guy who you just monitor on the waiver wire.
He might have that big week 1, and
right,
he's your fab dump. Like,
right. I 100% agree. I think we could come here week 1, week 2, week 3, whatever it is early in the season when we're doing our waiver wire show and say, hey, dump the fab on Greg Dulcich, because that's really what it takes, right? Like, he comes out in week 1, he gets 8 targets. It's like, okay, like, dump the fab. You know what I mean? Like, this is going to be a top 15 tight end in fantasy football this year. So, like, in best ball, he's a guy who you have to target. You have to target.
Completely
in an
agree.
18-round draft, like, get him on your team, make him your tight end 2, your tight end 3, take a flyer on him. And then just, like we've been saying, the term breakout. He's a guy who never went over 415 yards in his career. I think he clears 500 yards. Like, I'm not setting the bar that high for him. Like, I think he could be a 500-yard guy.
But in fantasy, as a tight end, you almost take that at points. Like,
100%.
that's a guy that could spot start for you and you feel good about
100%.
it. Like,
Right. And that's the thing here, right? Like, tight end, you're going to be, a lot of people in there who take late-round tight ends. You're going to stream. You're going to pick up a different guy here and there. The great thing about Greg Dulcich is the Dolphins have the easiest tight end fantasy football schedule this year.
There you go.
So there's a chance here when you're, doing your streams and you're looking at, all right, who has a good matchup this week? A lot of those weeks you're going to come and say, all right, like, Greg Dulcich, like, let's fire it up, you know?
3 weeks in a row, I got a great Greg Dulcich matchup. Let's
right,
throw it
like,
in there.
Like, I'm kind of there. Like, this isn't a guy who you should go out of your way to draft at all, but he's a guy who come week 1, like, be ready to dump some fab on him because I think he's going to come in and be pretty awesome. And then it's like, oh, everyone's going to want him. So, like, be ready for it. If you, come week 1, you feel like you have a roster spot, like, pick him up before week 1. Don't draft him. Honestly, don't draft him. Like, there's really no reason to. But, like, when you're roster baiting for a couple weeks after you draft your team and you're looking and the last guy you drafted, you're like, like, this guy, this wide receiver, this running back, he doesn't really have a shot, So, like, let me just grab a tight end. Like, everyone with their last few picks is going to be taking their shots on random wide receivers, rookies who went in the 6th round, running backs the same thing, the kid Claiborne from the Minnesota Vikings. Like, pick up Greg Dulcich instead of that guy, please.
I'll drop some game on the people real quick, too. If you guys draft your kickers and defense in general, this is something that I've adapted in my strategy. I don't draft a kicker in defense. I draft as many dart throws as possible, keep them on my roster until the very last minute, get as much data as I can in terms of camp reports and everything like that, and then I'll make my decision as to who I want to drop and pick up for my kicker and defense. So it's like defense in general, I think a lot of people stream. I know a lot of people like to draft them, the really good ones and stuff. I get it. I understand it, but I'm just not in that boat, and I never will be in that boat. Draft Greg Dulcich with your last pick. If you don't draft a kicker and a defense, draft him. Just keep him on your roster stashed. read everything you possibly can about him. And if you feel confident going into the season that he's going to have a legitimate role, drop somebody else.
Right.
So, yeah, if you guys enjoy this type of content, we've released multiple videos this week. We have multiple videos on the channel that you guys should go check out. We have a mock draft upcoming. And by the way, we are going to have a video every single day of the week in August. Yes, every single day, Monday through Friday, not the weekend. Sorry, we take weekends off a little bit. But you guys are going to have so much fantasy football content upcoming, a draft from every single spot, both avoids and sleepers at every single position. So there's so much content on the way. Stay tuned. Thank you guys so much for watching. Leave a like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and follow us on all of our socials. And with that,
Ball game. Nice.